I've always had kind of an interesting perspective on this because I am like my career is in a creative field, so I know what it's like to like have to give constructive criticism and take criticism and how to do it without pissing people off. I always kind of take the approach of like everything I'm going to write as if the developers are in here in the room with me, as if I'm part of their team and I'm trying to help them. Because I've definitely had games where I won't name any specifically, but I've had games where I'm like, fuck, this is just not clicking. So I try to really just like keep in mind, like, okay, what are the parts that I am jiving with? What do I like? Focus on why those are good. And then, just try and be constructive about, hey, why is this not working? What is it making me feel more than anything? Not necessarily, and I think that helps. I've had pretty negative reviews where the developers have emailed me and been like, thank you. I've had developers say like, hey, can we consult with you? We're working on something else. And I'm like, oh, sure. So, it's what you put into it. Don't be negative. Don't be, calling devs stupid or anything like that. Just remember, like, this stuff is hard to do. There's always curveballs and nonsense. And, like I mentioned Civ earlier, like Civ came out of the gate with some problems. It's not a terrible game, but it has some problems. And most of the time I've just been sitting around playing it, just trying to wonder, like, what happens? Like, what's going on behind the scenes of Firaxis and 2K that we got this? And that to me sometimes is more interesting than just being.
I think that answer lies more in that 2K publisher than anything. They have a long storied history with some fun things going on with games.
I think you could place a lot of the blame on that. But just be constructive, be good, and try to help. And then the best part, just because I cover mostly indies, the best part is when you give that criticism. Then like a few months later, they do an update and you can tell they listen to your feedback and you're like, yes, and it's better.
Well, they want to improve their product, don't they? So of course, I mean, we've spoken with devs and quietly I've spoken with them outside of the podcast. And sometimes when you do give constructive criticism, it can go kind of either way with them. But on the whole, they're extremely friendly because they want a career in game development, and that means putting out a product. And I've said it a dozen times on here before that if you want us to shill for your product, make a product worth shilling for. And that means means listening, to what creators are telling you are the areas of improvement on it as well. I think Mayo is probably the most famous person that just kind of tells how it is and kind of doesn't give a damn about how the public take it or something like that.
I've luckily had pretty good experience with the few like early access codes I've been given with developers, and most of them are like, oh, okay, maybe I can do a look into that and fix that, or like, oh, thanks for telling me about this and so on. So I haven't had any negative interactions, luckily, but I'm sure those happen from time to time. But I would say especially larger companies and stuff, I mean, it's kind of the PR person's job, or the person who probably gave you the code, etc. Like, that's their job to kind of take all this criticism and bring it back to those people who can fix these things. And I'm sure sometimes with like smaller developers or like 1, 2, 3 people, it might become a bit more personal sometimes, and maybe they take it the wrong way and stuff like that. So I think that's why people try to skew on the side of positivity a bit more when it comes to most games, I guess. But because you don't want to come across the wrong way and be like disrespectful, but at the same time you want to give honest criticism.
The other thing to remember too is like a lot of our audience, they're kids, like they're people in high school, so it's sort of like, I don't know, I try to talk about this stuff very respectfully, because I came up in the time of like people being pretty vicious, and it's like we could be a little more positive about how we speak, and they're influenced by how we talk about games ultimately. So
I think it's pick your battles too, right? There's this, because there is certain titles that definitely kind of deserve more than others. Like you talk about the indie scene, like when Sulaco came out, and like Yahtzee did a video on it where he was so critical of the game.
Yeah, that was
I was like, dude, you're
video.
talking about, it's like, mate, and I love that guy's videos and still do, but there's just certain times where it's like, not every game needs like to be looked at with like a fine tooth comb under a microscope, whatever. Like there's definitely times when, which actually about Avowed 2 surprised me, how there's this really sort of positive response to it, when it's like, if any other developer, like big developer did this, everyone would be making fun of it, but it's like, it's Obsidian, so it's kind of like people are overlooking all the faults with it. It's like, but it's not Obsidian kind of thing. But it's It's a weird
with that game.
thing
I've
to be
seen
in.
a lot of opinions on both ends. Like, I've seen a lot of like just really strong negative opinions, really strong positive opinions, and a couple kind of in the middle. But nowadays it seems like that's like every big game that comes out, and I think everybody looks at everything with like this idea of perfection. And you're gonna go into a game, it doesn't matter if it's an Avowed or an Indiana Jones, maybe you don't gel with their writing or their choices and story and how they portray characters or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you don't gel with a game, you don't gel with a game. Give your honest criticism. Don't talk about it, whatever you choose to do, and try to be more positive than negative at the end of the day. If you don't like something, and you want to voice it, then voice it. But don't sit there and like your opinion's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people will be like, oh no, you're just wrong. This game is awful, and you shouldn't like it. Or vice versa.
Yeah. It's like people saying Indiana Jones was woke because it had Gina's character. She had one line in that game where she was like, try to keep up or something. And it's like, a lot of the dudes say, have you never had a chick flirt with you in real life? Like, it's a pretty basic interaction, man.
I was playing
boss
this morning.
Yeah.
And there's that one where you're going to the treehouse in Thailand and you're going to open the door and then you're like, here, come help. And she's like, what? I was just giving you a chance to use your big muscles. And then she helps you open the door. Like, I guarantee there's some journalists out there going, yep, no, girl boss. I'm like, no, that's just a smart ass chick who's like flirting and just being an ass. So that's what that is.
So how would you both pitch Indiana Jones if someone was kind of interested in it? And, we're talking about it right now. How would you kind of get that hook to them and say, actually, it's not woke. This is what it is. Go play it.
The simple thing is just use your eyes. That's how I would pitch it to someone. Just played it because I had a few people say, this game's super woke. And then you chat to people. And again, Kirk, you probably do the same thing, right? Where you reply to some certain comments. And sometimes you see a comment and it's just like, it's very obvious this person hasn't played the game. And you might pry a little bit and say, oh, so where are you up to in the game? And like, oh, well, I haven't played it yet, but I've watched this video and this video. And it's like, well, okay, you're welcome to your opinion, but now you're just kind of talking out your ass. But it's like the weirdest thing was people saying like, to the Genie character again, where they said, oh, she's super woke and she's super girl bossy. But it's like, have you seen the movies? Like, did you see Raiders of the Lost Ark? They're funneling Marion's character into this same kind of archetype. It's pretty much the same formula exactly. So it came back to that thing where people were like, you haven't played the game and you clearly aren't familiar with the movies, or you wouldn't be saying stupid things like this because, I don't know. It's really just a common sense thing a lot of the time. I don't think it boils down to much more than just try playing the game, try playing it with a bit of common sense, and you'll see that it's not everything is as sort of, outrageous as people make out on Twitter. That's how I'd say it. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the difference between you and me, because I see those comments. I go, I don't care. Like, I don't even like to entertain it. It's just the dumbest like criticism to throw out at the game. And yeah, to G-Man's point, use your eyes, watch the movies. Like, what are you talking about? The thing that comes up to me, this is still the most wild. Like 2 years ago, that the Doom Engine game Supplice or Supplice or
Supplice.
Supplice. Supplice.
When you said Supplice in the video, I was like, people are going to comment on that, right? Because everyone's calling it Supplice.
They did. But so like, I remember like great game, like very like straightforward, just like Doom clone kind of thing, but fun. They put out the cover art for the game, and your main character is a black woman. And I had comments where it's like, the game's gone woke, don't play it. I'm like, because of like, it's like, if you think about that for like 2 seconds, assuming it's woke because of that, you realize that you're the problem, right? So that kind of stuff I just can't, especially in the States right now. It's like, dude, I'm so checked out of that argument.
It seems like